You know when I'm all right. Cool.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of Every Damn Day. Today on the show, I have my very good friend Peter Rowe. How you doing today, Peter?
I'm doing great.
So,
Hey,
where you at? What you been up to?
I'm just been stuck at home. I think like everyone else, due to COVID. I'm prepping for my final semester at MSU. Yeah.
Are you in East
Uh,
Lansing right now?
no, I'm staying at home because I'm a computer science major. So, everything's online for me. I think MSU really did a really good job transitioning, compared to a lot of other colleges in Michigan.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of MSU for what they've done. I mean, we had some hiccups like around the Harpers and everything that happened there, but I think East Lansing and MSU have done a really good job. I agree with you, I guess. So,
That's all right.
um, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and about some of your projects? And
Okay.
we'll talk about the big one for sure.
Okay, yeah, I was a college student, but I'm 25, and the reason for that is I took years off trying to start a business called meido. And before that too, was working. I was doing the whole soul searching thing and the like. Um I guess I would say an entrepreneur, but I'm more like a guy who's just a kid who just wanted to try to run a business and chase a dream and whatnot. Um, yeah. Do you want to talk about
Well,
meido or
well,
my other projects?
where were you born and raised? Let's talk about you
Okay,
for a
yeah.
little bit.
Let's go with there. I was born and raised in California. I'm a 2.5 generation South Korean. So that means like my dad doesn't immigrate here, but my mom grew up and was raised here. And I grew up mostly in California until like around 2008 ish, when my family moved to Michigan. My At Michigan, I went to Detroit Country Day School, and then I'm attending and going to Michigan State University. Let's see here. Majoring in computer science, yada yada. Yeah. I probably should have gone from where I was born. Yeah.
Well, that's all right. So you're in your last year at MSU.
Yeah.
How did you and I meet?
Oh yeah, I think it was during like my junior year. I got like an email, or I learned about the Fledge when I was starting my very beginning of like my proto meido phase, where I was like scoping out different business ideas to start as the company that I wanted to entrepreneur in. And that's when I went to I went to a entrepreneurship meeting, started by, oh man, I'm so nervous. I'm blanking on the name.
Like, was it Ken Smuziak or someone like that, or Lori?
No,
or
it was.
So, anyways, we met at a meeting at MSU,
right?
And tell us about the company that you, or go ahead.
Okay. Well, I guess that's, now that I recall, I went to the Fledge long before I met Jerry. Actually, now that I recall, that's why there's a disconnect there. I went to an entrepreneurship meeting, and and I met Jerry. Did we meet at MSU? Was that where we met? I saw Jerry. He was judging for an entrepreneur meeting at Techstars Startup Weekend. That's when I first saw Jerry. I don't think he knew me, but that's when I first saw Jerry. It's a long, complicated, as with like actual meetings in history, right? Like you think like Napoleon met his arch rival at like Waterloo or anything. No, there's like a this person saw this person but didn't say hi yet, and then afterwards, okay, back on topic, and during the Fledge, and when I really started getting into entrepreneurship, and I was doing the new venture, Burgess New Venture Challenge, and I really got into entrepreneurship, and that's when I started my company meido, which was initially what I started out was during an internship, I developed a computer vision system to work on a Raspberry Pi, which is like a $35 computer, and I had a camera, and I had it do machine learning using TensorFlow to detect defects in automobile parts. So I did that as like a project. I was assigned to do something else, but I'm pathologically incapable of doing anything that I don't really want to do. Am I breaking up?
No,
so
not
yeah.
at all.
So, all right, great. I just like, all right, and I did the defect scan system. And I realized, in a cost reductive industry like in like manufacturing, where like it's all about reducing cost. I thought that this would be a great idea to run a business with. So I went through MSU's like entrepreneurship, which led me to the Fletch, which is like one bus ride away from Michigan State's campus, and I try to start a business essentially.
That's right. Campus to the Fledge. Get on the one and you'll be there in 10 minutes, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So besides, without getting into the detail of what meido was doing, which I think is it always fascinated me what you were doing. But I think the big thing is, like, when you registered for the show, I was so very happy. And the way that you put the title, you said, try to run a simulation company called meido or something like that. And I knew what you wanted to talk about. I knew that you wanted to tell the story of that journey. And there's a word I'm avoiding right now, but I'll let you start to say it.
It was a failure. It was not $1 billion idea. It did not succeed. No, it was an absolute plane crash failure. But I would say that as many plane crashes, this is I caution you to listen to this tale because of survivorship bias, right? You don't want to always hear about the successes. I learned most when I talk to people who didn't quite succeed all the time, and I feel like you learn more from your failures is the generic term, but I'd say this is a true story. This is a true story of an entrepreneur trying to start a business and crashing it down, burning it to the ground. Yes.
Now, I see a lot of value that happened in that journey, and I took a lot out of our relationship. And what did you learn? What were some of those? What happened? Why didn't it work? What did you learn? What would you do different? All those things.
First things first, as a young adult, young male too, especially, like, I always been told, like, listen to your elders and listen to other people's advice. And I thought I was better at it than than my peers, but I was nowhere near good enough is definitely the number one lesson I learned from that. Like, there's not only just like the words that were coming out of people's mouths, but like the expressions and like the nonverbal communication that I met. Like, I had to meet a lot of people during my customer discovery and trying to run this business and get deals. I learned to pick up a lot on nonverbal communication, really listen to people. And I realized that, like, what I thought was listening didn't cut it. It was garbage compared to what was necessary to run a business. That was number one. That's the number one thing I learned was, like, if you think you're listening to people enough, you aren't. It is a constant learning curve. That's like it's like a martial art that you got to practice all day. It's like listen jitsu, where you got to listen. Like, even when you think you're listening, you're not listening enough. Is the first and last thing I learned. Well, not the first, last thing, but the number one thing that I learned when I started this project and ended it. Okay. What else did I learn? I learned so much that it's hard to choose. But I knew for a fact that's one that I needed to do.
Why do you think it failed?
I didn't do good enough customer discovery. So in entrepreneurship, there's a phase where you have an idea, right? And you're like, this is pretty good. Like, yeah, you generally, like, everyone does that, like, initial, like, does this actually work? And a lot of ideas, at least initially, look really good. And then and you go into customer discovery where you talk to your customers, your potential customers, and see if they actually want it. And I should have done that a lot sooner. My problem was that I was very insecure about my product. Like, I really wanted to make sure I had a good product. Like, I was so paranoid that my product was crap. Like, that just made me shake, like, at night. Like, I just could not. I was just like so scared of the fact that my product was crap, and it still was even after I was paranoid about it. It was still pretty bad, but even then, like, I was so focused on the product that I didn't do enough about listening to my sales. And I had to really look at like what the attitude of the industry was at. And the fact of the matter is that like, I was told, like, I read articles about how the manufacturing industry is shrinking, and there's not as much money as there used to be in R&D research. And I realized that, like, the problem was my product was geared towards people who are pinched the most in the industry, who could not afford to take huge risks into research. And even if they did, it'd be very long going. It would take several years to get the data, to do the research, and then to launch this product, which is not something I could afford to do. I needed to get this product out way too fast to do that. And that's ultimately, I think, why the product failed, is that I was not aware or cognizant of the time scale that was necessary, and I didn't listen. I should have done customer discovery sooner to fail faster. There's a few disparate points there, but I hope you got that comes across.
Yeah, I think it does. And so I remember sometimes you had meetings, you were going to pitch to the management or whoever you were working with a particular company. And, they always were kind to you, right? They always gave you some affirmation for the most part. They've always said, well, maybe we'll buy it, or you can do this as your internship or whatever. Do you think they were too nice to you? Do you think that led you astray?
I think that no. I think that, like, I would prefer a hard no, but it's very difficult to always say a hard no, right? Because you never know. And in business, you never want to really be the guy to say no until you really have to. And when you do, it's mostly just like ghosting. Like, it's just I'm not going to answer your emails anymore kind of deal, which is frustrating. But ultimately, like, I don't want to say that they were too nice to me either, but that is a very difficult question. That's a real question. I can't say, because, like, there's always that balance, and it's never gonna be an easy answer, no matter how long you live. Like, how nice do you be to people in general, right? Yeah. Like, how honest are you them? Honesty might hurt them. It might just, like, make them be like, no, you're wrong, and they might just crawl into their hole even more. And honestly, personally, like I said, I wasn't listening as well as I should have, which is the first lesson I learned. And, like, honestly, I don't blame people for not being perfectly honest with me, because I wasn't listening to them as well as I think I should have been, right? Even if they didn't outright say no, I can tell from, like, how their verbal, like, their facial expressions are, or how they're acting, that, like, what they truly feel and think. And I was not really listening to that. And when you're not really doing that, like, can you really blame them for being, like, honest, like not being honest with you, when you don't try to at least truly try to understand what they're feeling? Like, can you blame them for not being honest to that kind of person, is what I say. Like, I'm not, they're not the villain here, is what I'm trying to say. I'm mostly the villain here, is what I'm trying to say.
I love this answer. I think this is a great answer. Are you going to start another? Well, you pivoted a few times, right?
Yes.
You have a couple pivots. Yeah. Tell us about those.
Okay. So, like, when I initially started, I was doing an inspection system, which surprisingly had the most traction as I talked to people. But ultimately, I tried to pivot to a simulation software, because I realized that computationally, a simulation software would provide the most benefit to the industry. it'd be more costly, but I realized that like my inspection wasn't going to cut it. There were other solutions out there, and unless you have like a fully robotic solution, it's hard to integrate machine learning into the manufacturing process, especially because everything is so very low tech. Like people are using large machines that have been built in the 1950s and are still using them. Like the design has ultimately not really changed all that much, and these purchases were done like 20 years ago. So there's a lot of jumps in like in terms of sensors and the like, and for data analysis to really go through. But okay, sorry, I'm going to failures. I pivoted. I'm focused on pivots. I pivoted to simulation. And I also did like 3D printing. I did some 3D printing work on the side, but that was not really a pivot. Like my main focus was two products, which was first the machine vision inspection system, and then I tried to pivot to a simulation as my main product. Those were, I didn't really pivot all that much. It was just like from one product to another, and I tried to do both, actually, see which one they wanted more, and I could just like switch pick and choose which one I pitched to the company that I was talking to, which I think was pretty useful, especially, and it was pretty easy to do because my products were so like initially low cost.
Yeah. So at some point, you're doing your customer discovery. You're not quite listening, so you're not really hearing or measuring the truth there. You try to pivot a couple of times, and then one day you decide, I'm going to stop. What was that like? How did you get to that? When did you know to stop?
I knew to stop when I had a few interested customers, and when I lost contact with them, and they weren't when they ghosted me essentially, and I was running out of, I had a small like set of money that I was going to run. I was using my own money essentially, and part of Lean Rocket Lab, which is who had been nothing but supportive to me. And when I realized I was not getting, I was the number of customers that I was generating in order to run my business was not growing. When you're not getting customer growth, it's generally a good sign to quit. A lot of other things had happened. Like I was just like in a terrible state too. Like I was not managing my life as well as I should have been. A lot of things were going wrong, and such that like finally I listened to all that, and I was like, all right, I got to stop. Like this isn't working. I should just go back to school and get a degree, because a lot of my credibility also was low because I was a dropout essentially at that point.
Mm-hmm. So I want to give a shout out to Lean Rocket Lab too, because they were pretty helpful in those beginning phases, right?
Yeah. And the coaching from there, like, man, I wish I had like the whole like Lean Rocket Lab is a startup accelerator in Jackson, Michigan, run by like Brandon Markin and oh god, this looks so
Don't
bad.
I'm so sorry. I'm gonna be embarrassed too.
It's a co-partnership, and I know their faces. I know what they did for help me, but like I'm like so nervous. I'm sorry. I'm so nervous now that I'm blanking on the actual names. This is why I've written down names in a notebook.
Matt helped you a lot, right?
Yes. Right? Oh, yes. Matt was my mentor essentially there. He guided me through the entire process. He ran his own casting company for a while, and that experience in the industry really got me leads that I would have not even been able to do a proper customer discovery without Matt's help. Like just getting in the door with like having a like talking like with the Lean Rocket Labs, like at least I could do customer discovery. Like my business wouldn't have even have started. I mean, my business is a failure, but like if I had an actually good idea, and there were a couple good ideas going on at the Lean Rocket Lab currently and previously, and the Lean Rocket Lab was like a place I could go to work. Like it's also it's like a WeWork in a sense. I don't know how they're doing it now that COVID's going on, but what it was like essentially there was you rented a desk and you could do your office there. It was like a like you could part time like it's great like if you're around Jackson and you have a job but you want to do a side like business. What you can do is you can just rent a desk there, and all your mail for that business goes to there. There's a coffee shop inside there as well. You could really and like you have a patent lawyer, you have engineers and experts, and even like public speaking, like all the interpersonal stuff I really needed coaching with. I got so much help from like in terms of interpersonal skills. Like I'm freaking out right now on live stream, but like, I was way worse before. Like I got coaching there. Like I would like just be locked up, really stuttering if I was for the coaching I got from the Lean Rocket Lab there in terms of like
you're doing great
skills. Okay,
you're doing great. So are you going to do another company?
Right now I'm so the big lesson I learned to the tech, like I talk about a lot about my interpersonal as a person, what I learned, but in terms of the tech, what I really learned was the expertise that the industry leaders in manufacturing had was intuition. Like it was intuitive. It wasn't something that you could like. Let's say you had an expert in packing groceries, right? Like you'd have to sit and like you can't expect them to just explain to you what they're doing, right? Like why are you putting the ice cream in the bag all by itself? It's like, oh, it's because it's gonna melt like through the bag, and I'm also double bagging in plastic because I've seen it a dozen times where the plastic, like the ice cream starts getting wet, it breaks through the plastic paper bags. And it's like, that's not something you could just explain when you're being taught how to bag groceries, for example, right? You need an expert to say like from past experience, from like 50 years, 20 years of experience in like whatever I'm doing, I've learned to build this intuition to do proper casting. So when my simulation tech arrived, I was like, no, we're not going to use it because I've got 50 years of experience. And honestly, it's really good. When I look at like some of the like when I look at some of their like test cases and I ask them for examples and like all the stuff they explain, I was like, I can't compete. My major competitor when I realized in Discovery was not like any simulation tech. That's what I thought was my competitor. No, what was really my competitor was like the raw experience that these guys have built over 50 years, and there's no way for me to compete with that. So it got me thinking, right? All right, so it's intuitive, so it's not like I thought about like the human brain. Like I started, so what I'm working on right now is like a simulation for the human brain. It's way too big in scope. I realized this, and this is why I went back to school. I was like, all right, at this rate, I'm going to be back. I have to go back to school. I probably like if I really wanted to do this right, I would have to go to graduate school. And I was like, no, I'll get an undergrad. I'll get a job, and I'll read. What I learned when I was working on this was I could just read art like papers. There's a lot of, like in the age of the internet, all those high tier papers, like I could get them for like $50 or so, or just ask the researchers, hey, can you just email me a PDF of your research, and then I could just read that on my own. So that's personally what I'm doing. I planning to do is just work on the have a job like a 9 to 5 in tech. Like I'm gonna finish my degree and get a job in tech, and on the side I'm gonna read every single neuron paper, like like whatever paper I can about like neuroscience or whatnot, and try to build a model. Like a lot of the simulation research I did, I'm going to convert that into a simulation of like intuitive knowledge of the brain. And I'm probably going to be 6 years away from that. That's honestly is what I realized. Right.
Well,
and okay.
Well, let me ask you something about that.
Okay.
So meido was a failure, and right. I don't use that word very often. I think it's succeed or learn. I just have that. You know, we have to level up. Everything's a video game. You fail on level 1, you know, for the first 10 minutes, and then you get by it, and then you're off to the races. So meido was a failure, though. Was Peter Rowe a failure?
What do you mean by failure? That's a loaded question if I ever heard of one. I would say that the idea, like the business, like failed. but it's actually because the thing is, meido was a one-man show, which is also a big problem. I realized, which is also why I don't really want to go to graduate school, because the major problem I had was like interpersonal, like business. I have to learn to work with people. I'm not going to learn that in graduate school. So I got to go get a job, actually talk to people who are way older than me, way smarter than me, and like actually like interact with them, work with them in a team, right? I've experience like working with people my age. I've experienced working with like dealing with like interpersonal drama within people my age, but I don't know how to work with like, if I'm gonna do anything, it's gonna be I have to work with people who are way older, of different variety of like different ethnicities, genders, religions, and like diverse. Like that's not something I can like add access to until I get a job, right? Like an actual like tech job, and know like how to talk to other engineers in a job setting. So yeah, that's what I gotta do.
Yourself, but do you think you were a failure in that process?
I mean,
yes or no?
No, but only under the grounds of like only on the grounds of that I don't know if go ahead.
Is Peter Rowe a better entrepreneur now today than he was 2 years ago?
I would say he's more responsible. Is he a better entrepreneur until he succeeds? I can't say. Like what the problem with entrepreneurship is like there's no test or there's no like litmus test or like maybe if there was like an entrepreneurship video game, we could rate every single entrepreneur. Like here's your business idea. Here's the video game. Like let's run a simulation of like you trying to run the business. Like what are like we can then rate. I guess that's a pretty interesting. There are probably some like games that do that where like there's like kind of there's like truck driving simulators. So I'm sure there's like an entrepreneurship simulator. But
that's a good idea right there.
I mean, it'd be interesting, but I don't know. I probably wouldn't do as well as some other existing companies like EU4, which is a Europa Universalis 4 is a video game where you run a whole country and you have to deal with taxation, diplomacy, warfare. So they could probably do a video game on business running because it's basically the same thing.
Yeah. So what do you think what's your mission? What are you on a mission to do right now?
What I really want to do? Well, my mission is like, what is my mission? That's again a broad loaded question. I'd say I don't know. It's weird because I feel personally like I'm on the clock. Like this is January 9th of 2021. This capital of the US got stormed. There's a Democratic majority. New COVID variations of COVID are being discovered every day. It's hard to know. I initially just like, I'm gonna just sit at my desk. Like I'm just gonna do a 9 to 5. My mission is to figure out how the brain works in 16 years or something. And that was gonna be it. But I feel like there's a very I felt this general sense of urgency. Like I don't have 16 years. Is something I feel genuinely like I feel like the world's gonna burn if I don't figure everything out in 8 years or 5, like not even 8 years, like 3 years from now, like the world's gonna burn. And I better get like really productive by then. And so the way I see it is my mission is like by the time I'm 30, I'm hoping that I'm like an actual adult is kind of my mission, I guess. It's like, just be an adult by 30, please myself.
I would say 54. That's my mission. I still do your mom jokes. You know how I act, so I don't know if I'm capable.
But you're like a cool sailor, dude. It's
I think you're amazing, Peter. I really liked meido. I really liked working with you when you were doing that, and I will go on the journey with you anytime that you want to. And just one thing real quick before we go into the daisy chaining the shows together. It's been fun to watch you and fun to watch the different you had minor successes here and there. You got some funding from different places. You had, you were going through an experience that I think we all should feel lucky when we get to go through that experience. And I think you're a little shy to say, yes, it was successful. And yes, I am a better entrepreneur. But it's obvious to me that you're a better entrepreneur, and that if you're pathologically incapable of doing something that you are not doing, of doing something that you don't want to do, like you said earlier, I think that was your exact quote. Entrepreneurship is for you. That's where, I think it's where you're going to keep landing, and you're going to keep wanting. And I think that also, here's a question I wanted to ask you. There was a lot with COVID in 2020, and then George Floyd was murdered, and the Black Lives Matter movement, and all of the protests and all of that. 2020 was a year of really exposing racism and really exposing how vulnerable our systems were, how non-resilient they were, or fragile, if you will. Did you experience racism like related to COVID? Like, I know that a lot of people, like, especially if they were Chinese, they were, being targeted as kind of like, you brought this here or whatever. Did you experience that?
Personally, not at all. I don't know. It's, yeah, well, at least not explicitly. Like, no. It's a simple answer. It's just no. It's like, I don't know. I'm in Oakland County right now, so like and also I've not interacted with any real person. The only people I interact with daily are like the fast food chains around my house to get delivery. It's just to pick up food. Although I talk to my neighbors, and I don't know, they seem pretty cool. I always, we look out for each other. They say, if you need any help, like during this crisis, let us know. And I'd be like, yeah, same here. So I feel more hopeful. Like, I feel the people who I live next to are going to like look out for me. Like, we had conversations like 6 feet apart while we're walking, well, not walking together, but like when we meet while we're out on our individual walks, it's nothing but like support. It's just more reason for me to go out there and try to work harder, honestly, just be more responsible in general.
Well, I'm glad you didn't experience that. So we daisy chained the shows together. Yesterday we had Brandon Betts, who's the first ward city councilman of Lansing, and he's a democratic socialist, and he's an economist. So we talked a lot about socialism and economics and capitalism and entrepreneurialism. And he loves entrepreneurialism. He sees it like I see it, a way for us to solve a lot of the social issues that we have. And he wanted me to ask you, one thing he always sees is entrepreneurs get knocked down and they get right back up and they go back in. And, you're not necessarily starting another company, but you said, I need to go grab this computer science degree and get this competency, the skill, that paper, and get some more experience. What made you get up? Why do you keep wanting to do it? Why are you thinking about this 3-year, 8-year, 60-year plan? Why not just go work for someone and let them worry about all that?
Well, I would say that I have there's a number of quotes that would answer this, but I would say the first thing is like, if not me, then who would do this? Because I look around and I see my friends who are doing the exact same you mentioned, where they're just getting jobs and they're living happy lives. And I don't blame them. I don't resent them, but I feel like there's no one else doing this. And that really scares me. It's like I feel like if not me, then who's going to? And I feel like I'm a person who's been really lucky. Like, I grew up in an affluent family. I grew up with parents who like are strict, but like still willing to support me. Like they very strongly supported me through like my entrepreneurship. There's no like I don't think my friends would have that opportunity. Like even some of my friends, like some friends are like too rich or too poor. I feel like I'm in that just right in the middle where like I have a duty because I'm the only one like a lot of friends have to face like I get paid millions to work at a tech company. I can't not do that is what I hear like what the story is. But for me it's like, well, I can't also do that. I just feel like there's a necessity for me to do this is what I would say. Like it's not a choice for me. It's something I ought to do is how I would say it. And it kind of also it's like also I'm compulsive. Like I said, I'm pathologically incapable of doing something I don't want to do. So those two hand in hand together.
That's exactly like me. I mean, I just shut down. You know, I have to do a bunch of bureaucracy or my taxes or anything like that. I shut down and have to get a lot of help to lift me up out of that. So tomorrow on the show, we have Alyssa and Stephanie, and they are two of the founders of Refuge Recovery Lansing. They run Refuge Recovery Lansing, which is like a meditation, mindfulness way to deal with substance use. And what question would you like to ask them, or like me to ask them on your behalf?
I'm always, when I get heard about like service providers, and whenever I get told about like service providers, I always wonder like, how do you like monetize that? How do you sustain yourself? Because like I look at like nursing homes and just like nurses in general, people who are caring and like providing a service to people who are desperately in need. How do you get paid? Because it's not, oftentimes these people don't have the money to. What's the like if you had to run this like a for-profit, how would you go about doing that and such that you can still provide that service that people desperately need, but still, get paid? There's questions like some people with answers like Andrew Yang's like $12,000 a year. Like, well, 12,000, is it 12,000 a month? It's 12,000 a year. Is like we give people intrinsic value, like monetary benefit, and helping these people would cost that money. And there's a lot of ways to go about it. But like in this current capitalist system that we have going right now, where these people need the help right now, like in this system, right, what we have right now, how are you? What's the business plan? How would you solve that problem? Is my question, not to Lisa and Stephanie.
All right. So I will ask them that. I always turn that question around on my guests. So, okay. But I'm gonna do it subtly different today. Do you think that so they're a nonprofit, okay? Do you think they should convert to a for-profit? Do you think that most companies should have that for-profit mentality? Most organizations, I mean to say.
I think due to like the kind of help that nonprofits get, you shouldn't swap to a for-profit like officially, like actually as a structure, but you should definitely be in the mindset of a for-profit, because like you're an engine that has to keep on running. You're a plane that cannot crash. It has to get gas somehow. And if you want to help these people, you have to have, I would say the answer is obvious. You have to go for profit. Like you have to run with a for-profit mentality. And that means you'll probably have to get your hands dirty. But I would say that as a nonprofit who's running with that, with the goal of helping these people, you're going to get your hands dirty, but you're going to get your hands dirty for the right reasons. And running and trying to run a nonprofit with like that, without a for-profit mentality is not going to work. It just simply won't be sustainable. Something's gonna give, and you're just gonna bleed yourself dry if you don't do for-profit. And I think that there are a lot of studies that also back me up on this claim, where they say that running for-profit helps nonprofits be more effective and provide even stronger goods, right? Yeah. I hope that answers the question.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, the pledge was started out as a for-profit only. We eventually created our foundation, which is our nonprofit sibling. So yeah, I'm right with you, and I think people out there understand. I just want to show, one of our good friends, Sean. What's up, Sean? Always out in the crowd for us. Only you can lead the accomplishments of what's in you, and I think that is great advice for every single person. She's specifically referring to, who is going to do it? Who, if not you, who? But I think, we all have a sense of purpose. We all have a thing we were born for, and searching for that and finding it and executing on that is what joy and happiness and fulfillment and productivity all should mean to us. So, Peter, thank you for coming on the show and telling a story, not of, hey, I'm going to go on the show and brag about the sales that I got this month. I'm going to tell a story that people can relate to, because, there's a lot of posers out there, right? A lot of imposters out there. But all of us, we're going through struggles on, maybe different levels, maybe different things, especially as your company. It's not always as shiny and polished as it seems. There's a lot of dirt, a lot of grease, a lot of getting your hands dirty, like you said. And thanks for having the courage to tell everybody your story, because it's important for people to know that we're all going through a very, very similar thing. I mean, I'm beating my head against the wall all day long over here, but to the public, looks kind of smooth, I think. So before we finish, I have one last request of you. Tell us something. Take us out with something. And it could be deuces, I'll see you all later, or it could be some word of advice, whatever you want.
Word of advice, or whatever I want, like an outro. Yeah. Well, I would say that for everyone, like, it's a pretty crazy time that is right now. I'd say that, I would say that there's a lot of people are capable of doing a lot of bad, but I think that what this week in general has shown is, with the vaccine coming out at the same time, new variants are coming out. There's both the bad and the good, and I think that if you reach if you're in trouble, I think personal lesson I also learned during my my failures is don't be afraid to ask for help. I think that people are genuinely trying to help, will genuinely help you, and if you ask them sincerely, you'll at least get an honest answer from them. I think yeah, that's my outro. Stay safe out there. I know that we're supposed to socially distance, but that doesn't mean that you can't ask for help or reach out to other people in other ways. All right,
that's right. Ask for help. We all need help. Almost everything we do is through other people. So ask for that help. Get that help. Great advice, Peter. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Everyone, stay tuned for tomorrow. We'll have Alyssa and Stephanie on from Refuge Recovery Lansing. And we will see you later.
Bye-bye.